Hi. So we are on verse 21 through 25 of chapter 4 of Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Through restraining the prana, thought and counter thought are restrained, and though restraint of thought and counter thought, prana, air, is restrained. Chitta has two causes, vasana and prana. When one of the two is destroyed or inactivated, the other will also become immobile. Where mind is stilled, then prana is suspended there. And where prana is suspended, there the mind is still. Mind and prana are mixed, like milk and water. Both of them are equal in their activities. Where there is pranic movement or activity, there is mind consciousness. Where there is consciousness, there is prana. Therefore, if one is annihilated, the other is eradicated. If one is active, the other becomes active. And while they exist, all the senses are active. If they are controlled, the state of moksha or liberation is attained. The word for mind is manas. However, it is used to indicate a particular aspect of mind. The total individual mind is known as antakarana. Manas is part of the antakarana. It is thought and counter thought. The word chitta is also used to indicate mind, individual consciousness, and an aspect of antakarana, which is memory. Some scholars even consider chitta and buddhi as identical. Let us not become confused here with the terms and details. We are considering the whole finite mind or finite consciousness. In order to dissolve the whole finite mind, each of the elements or tattvas constituting it has to be separated. Just as if you were to separate hydrogen and oxygen from water, then water as a whole substance would no longer remain. Similarly, when the principles constituting mind are separated, there is no longer finite perception. What we call spiritual evolution is a process of mental involution because we are trying to dissolve the individual process of perception. The process has to be a conscious experience, otherwise you will just be entering a deep sleep. By working on the subtle underlying structures of the mind and body, these principles constituting the mind are gradually disintegrated. Through shatkarma, asana, pranayama, mudra, and bandha, the physiological and subtle elements are controlled. Ida Nandi channels the force of will and desire or ichcha shakti. Pingala Nadi distributes the force to act or kriya shakti. If these two lines are operating, the mundane experience of individual body and mind is sustained. If they are disconnected, there is no consciousness and no activity, as occurs in deep sleep. If they are plugged into Sushumna, consciousness and activity do take place, but it is no longer confined within the limitations of the individual body and mind. That is the experience of moksha. Sense experience occurs when the consciousness or chitta is carried by Shakti to the sense organs. If the Shakti does not carry the consciousness, there is no sensory experience, unless it is experienced physically. No, psychically, not physically. Directly through the higher brain centers. If there is no impetus to send the chitta Shakti, the sense organs will not operate. The motivating force which moves the chitta Shakti is desire and will. It is a vicious cycle. Impressions or some scars are deep-rooted desires or vasanas motivate the sense organs. And the sense organs create more impressions and some scars by their contact with the memory. When these deep-rooted impressions are eliminated, then perhaps you can control the mind directly, through the mind. Until this is achieved, it is necessary to control the flow of prana through the sense organs. In fact, it is not until the highest stage of samadhi is achieved that these vasanas have no effect. Verse 26 and 27. Mercury and mind are unstable by nature. By stabilizing, seizing, or fixing Mercury and mind, what cannot be perfected. O Pavarti, when Mercury and prana are made steady, disease is wiped out. When they are made torpid, that is life-giving. When they are seized, one moves in space, Brahman. What is this Mercury which is spoken of? Biologically, the element mercury exists in the body in minute proportions. However, the metal, its vapors and salts in greater concentration are highly toxic. In the science of alchemy, mercury is one of the three important elements involved in the process of transformation and transmutation of base metal into gold, signifying the transformation of the basic nature of man into the gold of illumined spirituality. Mercury is an interesting and unique substance. It is a brilliant metal which is liquid at room temperature and remains so at minus 39 degrees centigrade. It has high expansion coefficient and is therefore used extensively in thermometers and barometers. Mercury is a good conductor of heat and electricity, having a low oxidation potential, and is considered to be one of the noble metals. It occurs in nature most frequently in combination with sulfur as mercurous sulfate, a brilliant red powder known as cinnabar or vermilion. One of the strongest of acids, viz. Nitric and hot, concentrated sulfuric acid, have the power to induce mercury to react. The attributes and qualities of mercury have been known in yoga and tantric medicine in India for thousands of years, and even today, the metal and its ashes and salts are used therapeutically. Clearly, its significance was known to Swatmarama and the Nath yogis, who were also alchemists involved in the same task of transformation of the lower nature and the gross body into the finest substance, pure illumined consciousness, the divine body. This suggests that alchemy, which was practiced in secret by small numbers of initiates throughout Europe in the Dark Ages of religious persecution prior to the Renaissance, was part of a worldwide tantric tradition extending from Europe throughout West Asia to India. In chemistry, mercury acts as a catalyst in many organic and inorganic reactions. A catalyst is an agent which facilitates or promotes a reaction, but remains itself unchanged in the reaction. In the alchemical process, the three fundamental elements involved in the conversion of metals are mercury, sulfur, and salt. Alchemy considers that mercury itself contains sulfur and salt. Sulfur contains mercury and salt. Salt contains mercury and sulfur. In the subtle process of the conversion, mercury is a symbolic catalyst to which either the fluctuating prana or wavering mind is bound, so that the pure consciousness can be extracted. It should also be noted that a definite differentiation has been made in the slokas between the effects of stabilizing mind and mercury and stabilizing prana and mercury. Here, sulfur refers to the mind, mentality, mana shaktas. Salt refers to the body, vitality, prana shakti. Now, what is this catalytic agent mercury, which is able to combine with either the human body or mind in order to bring about transformation of awareness from gross into subtle and from base into noble? What is it which, when fixed in the mind, enables any perfection or siddhi to be achieved, and when steady in the body, cures all diseases and is life-giving? Certainly, this ethereal chemical essence is the bindu. The gross manifestation of the bindu in semen in the male body can be considered to have many of the characteristics of mercury. It is a glistening, irradiant liquid which is very heavy in the sense that it is difficult to stop it from falling in the body, down in the body. The use of mercury in the perfection of Vajroli has already been discussed in chapter 3. Mercury, therefore, refers to the bindu as a catalyst or vehicle upon which transformation of consciousness is accomplished. According to alchemy, the current combination of or relation between mercury, sulfur, and salt, in example, bindu, body, and mind, plus an energy additive called azoth, which has the same characteristics as prana, will transform the base mundane consciousness into gold, which represents the illumined consciousness of Atman. Therefore, when the alchemists refer to the substance mercury, it is symbolic of a subtler manifestation, just as the semen is the physical manifestation of a mental and physiological process. We can have a better understanding of what mercury and various elements represent by studying the information in the following chart, which I will share on my screen. So I don't think I will read this whole chart, but you see here the realm, the father consciousness, son individual consciousness, and mother body. Well, maybe I will just read it. It's short. So 1, God divine, realm, father, Atma, son, Jivatma, Holy Ghost, prana. And then 2 is man, spirit, Atma, soul, Jivatma, prana, body, prana. And then 3 is the elements, air or fire or air, fire, air, water, 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 earth. Chemicals, mercury or sulfur, sulfur, mercury, salt, salt. In the same way that the metal gold is either naturally occurring, In the same way that the metal gold is either naturally occurring or may be transmuted from other metals by scientific means, so the universal consciousness may be realized through 1, natural evolution, which is a long and tedious process, or 2, through incessant yoga abhyasa, which is the catalyst to the process. Basic understanding of this alchemy into metal, basic understanding of this alchemy of metal into gold gives a deeper insight into yoga. Alchemy is the science of transmutation based on the physical phenomena of expansion, which is the same as the Tantra concept of expansion of mind and liberation of energy. Alchemy states that nothing from nothing comes. Alchemy works on the basic chemical elements to produce the purest essence. Just as in Hatha Yoga, the basic elements of the body are utilized to reveal the subtlest essence, Atma. Alchemy, like yoga, is the science of increasing and improving that which exists. The basic philosophy of alchemy coincides with Tantra. The Supreme Shiva manifests himself through expansion because of the inner urge to expand outwards, bandhana, the struggle for expression and manifestation of Shakti. Alchemy teaches that the Supreme Shiva is in everything and manifests through an infinity of forms due to Shakti, like a spiritual seed planted in the dark earth of the material universe. Through faith, shraddha, and contentment in the supreme or pure consciousness, individual mind can be transmuted from the base instincts, desires, passions, and emotions, which are represented by the different planetary metals, into gold. An example, cosmic consciousness. Base metals have the same quality as do ignorance, avida, and these can be transformed into pure gold. Then why should it not be true that due to different states of finite mind and perception can be transformed into the highest consciousness? Alchemy states that the inferior agrees with the superior and the superior agrees with the inferior. This is the fundamental maxim of Tantra. That which exists in the macrocosmos exists in the microcosmos and vice versa. The metal mercury, which we have been considering as a substance, is a means of procuring a more subtle transformation in the realm of mind, energy, and consciousness. Mercury is often equated with buddhi or higher intellect. According to the Vedanta, the higher aspect of buddhi is the closest to Atman. Another aspect, which is to be considered, is the planet Mercury. Mercury, because of its gravitational pull on the Earth, also exerts a particular effect on each individual. Astronomically, Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun, just as buddhi is the closest to Atman. It is the smallest planet, just as buddhi is the most subtle aspect of the mind, being 1.5 times the size of our own moon, and it is the greatest, and it has the greatest linear speed. taking only 88 days to orbit the sun. In comparison with Earth, which rotates upon its polar axis once in 24 hours, creating the alternating periods of day and night, Mercury has always been thought of as perfectly round, without an axis of rotation. One side of the planet is always facing the sun, and the other is perpetually in the darkness. One part of Buddhi always reflects the Atman, the other individual consciousness. The dual nature of the planet Mercury accurately portrays man's dual nature, his higher and lower self, Ida and Pingala nadis, consciousness and unconscious mind, Jivatma and Paratma. It has given to the expression mercurial, referring to a personality or disposition, which is given to polar extremes. However, in 1974, data from the Marina 10 space probe somewhat modified this ancient conception, showing that the planet does rotate very slowly upon a polar axis, so that one entire Earth year consists of only 1 day and a half night on Mercury. Such is the wonder of our intelligent creation that this scientific discovery has been made at a time when thinking people in all cultures are realizing that the pre-existing patterns of human belief of sharply defined black and white, good and bad, right and wrong, are not universal laws of nature. They are merely man-made cultural superimpositions from the past, which have attempted to encapsulate and control nature, which can never only be black and white, but also manifest every color and shade in between. In Grecian mythology, Mercury is the god Hermes, the son of Jupiter and Maika. An example, the product of union between Shiva, or pure consciousness, and Shakti, or energy. This agrees with the tantric concept of Bindu in relation to Shiva and Shakti. According to astrology, Mercury is physiologically associated with the central nervous system and the whole brain in general, also with the respiratory system, thyroid gland, and all the sense perceptions and sensory organs. In the subtle body, it is called Sushumna Nadi. The characteristics of Mercury are the urge to know, to be conscious, and to communicate knowledge to others. Mercury is unemotional. It is the principle of communication through mental and nervous attunement. It signifies transmission. Thus, we can understand that if these mercurial elements within us are controlled and stabilized, we will be able to accomplish whatever desire the mind is set upon. When the prana Shakti is stabilized, these aspects of Mercury will definitely balance the metabolism, eradicate disease, and awaken Kundalini. The symbol for Mercury is also interesting. It contains a semicircle representing individual consciousness, or Jivatma, above a full circle representing consciousness. Below that is the cross representing matter, manifest energy, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. This cross is derived from the caducus, where two serpents are intertwined around the vertical rod, indicating the two forms of Shakti around Sushumna. The symbol of Mercury contains the answer to the riddle of life. It is similar to the Om symbol. Thus, when the word Mercury is used in these two slokas, we have to understand all the possible implications. And I'll pause there. I'm going to share this because I think this is an image that was at the beginning of the sloka of the two signs. So Om, and maybe this one on the left, is what she just described as Mercury. Mm-hmm. That was very interesting reading that. And I like that, like learning about that planet Mercury. And I think about when people are like, Mercury's in retrograde, everything starts going wrong.
It is interesting how many parallels can be drawn between all these different ways of looking at the world and at ourselves.
Yeah, and I especially loved when she was just saying that we thought Mercury was doing one thing, and then the scientists found out it was doing another thing. And her wording that she says, the thinking people in all cultures are realizing that the pre-existing patterns of human belief. I feel like that's what we're going through right now. Like this pre-existing beliefs that were taught to us are now all being unthreaded so that we can learn it, how it really happened, like our history. I feel like that was a big part for me of 2020. And that's a lot of what this yoga practice does for me too. Like just because you were taught something one way doesn't mean you have to believe it that way.
Well, to me, it is something like that, but not quite. It's more, and this is something that's been around for a very long time, where you have one set of beliefs, the thesis, then you have the antithesis, which I cannot pronounce, but which basically means, no, this thesis is not correct. Nope, it's the opposite. It's, and then what comes out of it is synthesis. But then it continues going through. Synthesis becomes the thesis, and you have another antithesis, and you continually have these levels of discovery or awakening, that sometimes, and it's not a continual progressive thing. Sometimes it circles around and you go back down and you have to start over at a certain point, which is what the Dark Ages was, before. There was a tremendous amount of knowledge and understanding prior to the Dark Ages, which was pretty much wiped out. And not totally, but then people had to circle back and start over again, develop a new kind of knowledge. And then some people said, well, no, that's not really how it happens. And then it evolves into something where, okay, so maybe it's like this. And then you go back to this becomes thesis. You've got the people saying, nope, that's not how it happens. Let's look at it differently, antithesis. And then it goes to synthesis again. So I don't think we're going to come out of this year with any definitive knowledge any more than we have over the history of mankind. But I think it's a step in growth and development.
I totally agree. I guess I was more thinking about like the idea of like this white history I was taught, and how much like we were taught to believe history one way, like a very white, or I was taught to believe history one way, and now it's like all these other things are coming up. And it's like just an idea of like not of knowing that there's gonna, like you're saying, like not taking everything so literally, like hear what someone's teaching you, but know that there's going to be another side to it, like you're saying, and then find your way into the middle.
Right. And then it continues evolving. I mean, I think one of the things that happened in 2020 was, if you look at the divisiveness in political behavior, not just in America, but it's happening across the world, and political behavior, not just on a national level, but look at the understanding of racism and how racism has evolved. And it's, we clearly have black and white thesis and antithesis type of understanding now. And it is not evolving into synthesis very quickly either, but it's an interesting process to watch and to live through.
Yeah. And just even like my own self, I was watching a Hallmark movie on Saturday, one of those Christmas ones. You just never know where you're going to find inspiration. And it was based on Navy characters. And I'm not a huge, I think very negatively about our military, and I don't know where this started from, but they said something like about the military, their career being a life of service. And it was such like an Oprah aha moment for me because it is a life of service. And then I think about the life I try to live now, like this idea of giving back, not just financially, but just like energetically.
Mhm.
And I'm not that much different than the military because we're both living lives of service. And it shifted my belief of them so much in one day from that one moment. And so with her saying it here in this book, it just is like really crazy to me. And
Mhm.
her whole thing with the mercury, like that was so interesting to me. I did not like chemistry in high school, so I don't. It's like bringing up like, no, I don't want to know about the periodic table of elements.
Mhm.
But I did love learning about like the planets and stuff, so that made it so interesting. It's like so powerful. This one idea of alchemy and mercury and like that's something that's very interesting to me and makes sense.
I can see that.
All right. Should we move into our breath? So yesterday, so Micheline taught me this hand mudra for kapha season. It brings energy, and I do it all the time during this time. I'm so lazy, and I find myself doing it all the time. I'm not gonna force you to do it, but I'm just gonna offer it to you. If you wanna, we'll do breath, but then if you wanna take this hand mudra, since we talked about mudras in this book, we haven't done many hand mudras, maybe only like the pointer and thumb to
Right.
touch mudra. But I wanted to start incorporating mudra. So I offered this to students last night. So if you want to take it, you fold your pinky and your pointer into your palm and you cross your thumb over it. And this is called kapha. I'm going to butcher the name, Nasik or something. It's very energizing and you can hold it for like 20 to 30.
Whoa. It's interesting. This medication I have causes involuntary spasms in my fingers at times. So sometimes this sort of triggered one. This is energizing, Pam?
Yeah.
Okay,
And you
because I got to tell you, I am falling into such kapha ravines
I
in
think,
terms of laziness. You should have seen me yesterday. All right, so I'm going to do this.
yeah. So I wasn't doing it with both fingers down, but this is what I was reading about yesterday. I
Yeah,
thought, and I could be wrong, I thought I learned it with just the ring finger down. So I often do it like this. And I'm
yeah.
sure my two fingers are super glued together and super active. So my whole hand is active here. I'm lightly pushing my thumb onto my ring finger. So I often do it this way. And this one is called Surya uh, mudra, which is the sun mudra. So
Yeah.
if you want to do this one, but this is the real one that's energizing. And I was also talking about confidence yesterday, and it's also a major, I don't want to say major. Now I'm just throwing adjectives out. It's also a self-esteem boost. So it's really this one, and you can do both hands and then just rest with them. So I mean, you could do the whole 20 minutes. I don't know if I would if it's the first time you're doing it. Just do it for a few. But I do this even when I'm like laying in bed and I'm like, I got to get up for a few minutes. I'll just push like this for like a few seconds. And it's like such a mental thing for me. And I just love it. It's like such a sweet spot for me. Just doing, and I, like I said, I just do my ring finger, but today I'm going to try both fingers.
Okay.
I just
Okay. Well,
wanted to I just wanted to offer it since since we talk so much about mudras, we didn't do that many hand mudras. Okay, so let's do some alternate nostril.
okay. I just have to set this up. Okay, and set this up.
All right, so taking a few breaths in through the nose and out through the nose, just setting up your breath, setting up your body. And then bring your right hand over to your nose. Close your right nostril with your thumb. Inhale through your left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Continue like that on your own breath, adding breath retention and bandhas if it's in your practice. Taking your time to finish up that last round, exhaling out through your left side. And then if you want to join me in a few rounds of bumblebee breath, you could do 3 to 5 rounds. Or if you want to move right into your meditation, just move right in. You'll close your ears with your thumbs. You close off your eyes with your next 2 fingers. You'll take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, you create a humming sound at the back of the throat like a bumblebee. And you'll exhale for as long as you can. You just start over, just repeating the rounds 3 to 5 times. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. And if you want to add that hand mudra in, Bringing hands to heart. Namaste.